Hi everyone, today is October 31 and Tuesday, and this video is actually a response to some person that made a video about black women having low self-esteem. And a little bit about this video is that this Caucasian male basically says that one of his concerns is the low self-esteem in the black community, and the way to sort of resurrect that is to address the problem with the black female. And what he does is he goes to say that, for example, you know, he's not sure what to do with these bitches at 129. And that they need to go through some kind of intensive cultural change at 142. And at 156 says that he's sort of trivializing, how we understand things related to Nubian, ebony, queen. These types of terms in his mind is basically a term, but it's not anything more than just that term. At 210, he talks about, having some book for black children. Now remember, this perspective is actually being spoken from a person who was part of marginalizing the black community. So how do you start evaluating like epistemologies and, sensibilities around persons that I don't even know what they're doing, because this particular individual said that they just want to get hits. And it's very sad, because even that remark in itself says, look at how these people actually look at the exploitation of a community, and they actually exploit that for shareholder interests. Because he goes on to talk about the jail system and says that, the black population is actually putting stress on the social infrastructure in terms of sort of being cycled into this jail system. Some other things this person remarked about was basically the solution for literacy for black children is to have one book that he recommends. And that's very interesting, because it's very similar to sort of this white consciousness around the Willie Lynch stuff around, okay, you know what, we'll just make the slave by socializing them according to their principles. And it's interesting, this Caucasian person brings that theme back again, but in a different way. So he modernizes actually, that whole whiteness pathology. 234, he talks about, the country, the USA, being, very illiterate. And at 234, he goes into like characteristics of self-esteem, and according to what he's written in this book, what he's read in this book. At 322, he talks about weaves and, problems with black women having fake fingernails, and, the way that they may beautify themselves, maybe in the way that they understand, according to him, is a projection of how ugly they feel. At 345, talks about, some kind of, characterization or caricature of a black woman. At 357, he sort of changes the position to say, okay, some of the effects of having good self-esteem is, this. So at 443, he goes into saying, okay, one of the problems with the black community is sort of the dependency on the central administration or government. And, they depend on the government for giving them free cheese. They ask for free cheese. And, they grow their children in problematic ways to be sent into the prison life. And that also impacts this white ability to invest in different types of shares related to this jail culture. And, just basically trivializes this whole notion that the black male is not really a victim of the jail system. At 524, he talks about how to create the change. And at 554, he starts talking about this notion where the black woman has to start admitting her fault and correcting the mistakes. And at 643 talks about parenting and how from a white perspective, white male perspective, um, the way black people parent their children should be done in a way that the white male perspective actually determines for the black community. And some of the things that this person had identified was issues with low self-esteem, what they called emotional sickness, what they called spiritual sickness, and they also inferred to terms such as diseased people. So blacks are diseased people at 643. Also at 720, this person talks about, well, why don't more black men take care of their children, and sort of this viciousness of black women. And at 813, he basically shows the book, and I'm not going to give the book free advertising. So, at 840 goes on to say that that book that he has should actually be a required reading for every child in that live in ghettos and in relation to the black community. And it basically says at 910 that ghettos were establishments that, for example, the central administration created. So this particular person has some good points and has some incredibly problematic points. And I think one of the good things about this is that this person is actually trying to engage with the problem of the supremacy of whiteness. Remember, this perspective is actually from somebody who benefits from white privilege and, can only refer to things that are common to themselves. Like, for example, what impacted the black community was some book. And that book was actually a way to sort of slant realities, and not slant realities, but slant creativities. So to actually reverse the creativity in the black person, to say that the black person actually doesn't have the ability to be creative, and that's just not true. So, I don't know, some of my thoughts about stuff like this is that, sometimes I'm just like, what's the point of responding to this stuff? On the other hand, that person has the courage to actually post a video, and or may want to just provoke some kind of reaction in the black community. So, one of the things that I can only suggest is that, that person just, continue to explore something called their epistemology, and, just try and understand what's actually coming out of them through, trivializing the cruelty to black persons, because according to this person, the cruelty is, sort of resolved in this one book. And, I read that as, oh wow, here's another version of that one book to, try and fuck us up. I don't even know what to think other than to say, I certainly don't feel anything for this, because, one thing I realize is that when people are interested in something, they're going to say, okay, my positionality is this, I am trying to learn about this, and they're going to do their best to be sensitive to the whole situation. Remember, this guy said he's just looking for hits, right? He just wants video hits, so I left a comment or whatever. But, one of the things that, as I was watching it, I said to myself, how can that person begin to express how they are speaking from a decolonized perspective? Because remember, they're coming from a different type of socialization. And, for example, if all of what they know as white became black, some of them would probably just kill themselves. So what exactly is this person doing? And, just to trivialize, the sort of essence of the black community, which is both the male and the female, but to actually refer to the black female as a bitch and to, trivialize different ways that perhaps the black female is trying to beautify herself, trying to make sense of the world, and also try to defend certain positions. Um, it's problematic. It's really problematic from that perspective. But then on the other hand, this person could be learning, so we don't know. But I don't know. I just thank people for forwarding that video and stuff. And I think one of the key things is to ask, when people make these things, how does it actually make a person feel? Like, if this person is actually speaking this way to adults, how the fuck is that person around children? You talk to fucking children like that? I see some good points and I see some problematic points here too, because he also says too, and I hope some black people do pay attention to what he's saying, because there's some good points in there to say, you characterize yourself in these very ugly ways, but on the other hand, there's another aspect to that as to who's behind the scenes characterizing that stuff. So it's not about the black woman being ugly, but it's about this type of pathology related to the supremacy of whiteness. And yes, some persons from the black community actually internalize that so that they become, for example, the colored version or the black version of, what